Afternoon everyone, Melanie here. Welcome back to my channel. So I made a video to talk about shame. No one likes feeling ashamed. No one likes to talk about feelings of shames. But there we go. This is the number one reason people struggle with moving on after a divorce. It's feelings of shame, not so much anger and guilt that's keeping us from moving on. It's the feelings of inner shame. And more often than not, a really terrible breakup, a really traumatic divorce, it can bring up a lot of inner feelings of shame that come from childhood as well. It can get too much, and it's a feeling that can be so corrosive when we dwell on it for so long, when it becomes pathological, when it becomes toxic, and it feels like it can destroy us from the inside. People have different ways of dealing and coping with shame. It's such an intense feeling that many of us will try to avoid it at all costs. Some will just throw themselves into addictive behavior, numb themselves out. Some will just completely deny and project onto others. And some just tend to withdraw from life completely, taking on all the shame, becoming the scapegoat. So shame to an extent is kind of necessary for us to function as a healthy society. The problem is when shame becomes pathological, when it becomes so toxic, it corrodes us from within. Where's the line? Where does healthy shame shift into pathological shame? Let's think about what shame actually is all about. Compared to guilt, for example, which is a sense of feeling guilty about something you may have done or may have said, feeling like you may have done something bad. Compared to shame, which is feeling that I am bad, that you are bad for doing something, that your core to your being is bad because of something that happened. Guilt motivates us to take accountability for our actions. If we've done something wrong, if we've hurt someone, we take a moment to pause. The feelings of guilt serve to tell us that we've made a mistake and to take accountability and make reparations. And as such, you're fixing the situation, you're altering your behavior, you're making reparations, and as such, you can let go of the feelings of guilt. They've served a purpose. And what about shame? What could shame possibly serve? Feeling ashamed of who we are actually tells you that you're not a psychopath. You have a moral code, you have a consciousness. It's a good thing. May not feel great when you're feeling ashamed, but the capacity to be so self-aware that you can experience shame is quite a good thing. It's a horrible feeling to hold on to, and it's intensified if you've had a childhood in which you were shamed, in which you were the scapegoat, where you were blamed for whatever it was, and you being the nice guy, the nice girl, the empath, the caretaker, the one who absorbs it all. When we keep doing this as kids, when we take on the shame, we're telling our family it's okay, I want to make the environment a safe place, so we'll bear the burdens, I want you to be happy. This is what we do as kids. Many of us will take on the blame of the parent because you just want to see your mother or your father or your sibling happy, and you think maybe if I take the blame, then they will be happy and then I can emotionally self-regulate. Feelings of shame serve a purpose to cause us to pause for a moment and to reflect on our behavior, to think, okay, I am in conflict with someone, someone's not happy with me, someone seems to be very upset with me. Is it something that I'm doing? Have I done something? It's causing you to pause and reflect and take accountability for your behavior, and as such, make you think, okay, well, what is it that I need to do now? However, holding on to shame, it's very, very powerful because what it does, it triggers feelings of shame from the past. When we are triggered into feelings of shame from the past, it causes us to have an emotional flashback. And as such, we can find it hard to discern between what's really happening now and what's happening in the past. It's like we're reliving the past, and our reactions tend to come from a younger place, a place where we've been hurt before in this situation. It's a sense of deja vu is triggering old wirings in the brain. We're thinking, oh, the past is happening again. Things that can trigger an emotional flashback are things like shame, shameful things when someone's pointing the finger and blaming you for how the relationship went wrong, blaming you for how he or she feels. And this can trigger an emotional flashback, especially if this is quite a painful relationship. If you have been suffering for a long time, one tends to feel very worn out. So if you've just come out of a really painful relationship, you're going through a divorce, or maybe this has just been a long-term relationship which was toxic, which was dysfunctional. Perhaps it started out fine and it just went downhill and you're wondering what the hell happened. Perhaps you're feeling ashamed about it not working out. I have so many clients who are just worried that they're running out of time, that feeling ashamed for not making it work. It's something that all of us can relate to. Now, if you're dealing with an ex-spouse who perhaps has a personality disorder or is just really lashing out at the moment, is not able to emotionally self-regulate very well, it can make any feelings of shame feel a lot worse. When you have a spouse that is playing the victim role, a spouse who is projecting their feelings of shame, maybe displacing how they feel onto you, projecting all the darkness within onto you, and then saying, oh, I'm being victimized by you. You are making me do this. You are the reason you've created my suffering. It's very easy to listen and to believe. It's not fun, is it? It's not fun to be blamed for everything, but this happens a lot. And I especially have male clients who approach me saying they feel the shame about being the man in relationship, experiencing some spousal abuse, feeling that they couldn't talk about it with friends or family, or even talk about it online for fear that they won't be taken seriously, that they'll be blamed for it, much like they're being blamed for it currently with their spouse. So can be quite painful to hold on to, like not wanting to speak your truth, keeping your mouth shut and being quiet about how you feel. But this doesn't make the feelings of shame just magically go away. Putting your mind onto other things, throwing yourself into work, which is understandable. No doubt you spent a lot of money dealing with this divorce. It's tempting to not do any work on yourself, isn't it? But feelings of anger, feelings of guilt, and especially feelings of shame don't just magically disappear by ignoring them. They won't go away for long. You can try your best to hide and to suppress them down and to distract yourself. It may temporarily work, but what life does is throw just a crisis into your way, really mess things up for you, and likes to poke holes at your wounds, at your scabs that are still forming. It's best to address the feelings of shame when they come up, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to do so, to not run away from the feelings. And it's a painful feeling. All of us can relate to it. Feelings of being ashamed for who you are. If you're not feeling good enough, if you're feeling like the most terrible person, and if you have an ex-spouse or an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend who's pointing the finger at you and accusing and blaming, it's a very painful time. And if you don't have the tools to perk yourself up, it's okay. It's okay to admit when you need help. Even the strongest of us need help sometimes. We're social creatures. We're meant to live in community. It's fine. It's more than fine. It's perfectly okay to reach out to any loved ones. How about friends that you haven't reconnected with in a while? Reach out to them. Those who truly love you will be happy to hear from you. And it'll be good for you as well, just to get out this funk you're in, because when one's feeling ashamed, when we're stuck in a shame spiral, it's like the story becomes worse. It's a loop. It's a narrative in our head. I am this way. This happened. I am this way. I'm this way. And it just sends you into such a bad spiral. It can be harder to pull yourself out of it the longer that you're dwelling in it. So reaching out and connecting with friends and loved ones is such an important thing to do if you're feeling like you're stuck in shame at the moment. Find people that you trust, reach out, talk to them, If you're really struggling if you don't have anyone that you can reach out to, then find forums online, comment under my videos. You're not alone. Divorce, break up from a really long-term intense relationship is actually a really perfect opportunity for personal growth. It's an opportunity to go within, to look within oneself and think, what was it that I was neglecting in this relationship? Who do I want to become? What's my latent unfulfilled potential? Why was I being held back in this relationship? What can I do now to actually activate this potential? Getting into this way of thinking, to see this crisis actually as an opportunity for you to emerge more stronger and more yourself, and higher self-esteem, and more of a sense of purpose, and knowing who you are in this world. Well, these are all really positive and benefit traits to get from divorce. However, to get to this point, we need to get out of the shame spirals. We need to transform the feelings of shame. It's what I call transforming the neurotic into the existential. So this is one tip, basically. Transforming the neurotic, which is dwelling on toxic feelings of shame. And this is often when feelings from the past have emerged into your present day thinking. So you get perhaps triggered by something, and a memory from the past emerges, an emotional flashback, one that reminds you of feelings of shame from the past. And as such, we start reacting from a younger place, from a more wounded place. When we're reacting from a wounded place, we're not actually coming from the here and now. We're not being present. We're reacting as if we did back in the past. So neurotic feelings of guilt and neurotic feelings of shame are when we haven't actually come to peace with what happened in the past. We're still carrying it, and we're still projecting it and still reliving it in the here and now, but we don't realize we're doing it. So part of the transformation is to actually acknowledge, what are my shame triggers? What causes me to have an emotional flashback, for me to slip into the past again, where I think the past is happening? Now, this happens with all of us. All of us have emotional flashbacks. Anyone who's experienced wounding in the past, which is most people, if not everyone, then it's normal at times for us to be a bit triggered when we're a bit sensitive to things. Be honest, write them down. Write them down. What are your shame triggers? It can be from talking to certain people, talking about certain subjects, talking to people when you're in a certain state of mood, whatever it is, spending hours on social media, for example, looking at magazines. Now, bear in mind that divorce often brings up a lot of stuff from the past, so it's worth checking out with you what's come up for you as a result from this divorce. What stuff needs to be addressed that I honestly haven't addressed? Maybe it's something you can just have an honest talk about. Maybe it's something you can talk about with a friend. Maybe it's something you can talk about with a counselor. Whatever it is, be honest about whatever this has brought up. See this as an opportunity to do something different. And that's where you'll see the anger shift. We often feel angry when our boundaries have been tested. When we've been a caged animal, if someone's put us in a cage, if we've let ourselves be caged and not let ourselves be who we're meant to be, then yeah, we're going to feel angry. And the anger goes when you use that energy to do something different now, to actually meet your needs. What is it that you wish you had done? Let's do it now. Another tip is to get into a habit to regularly check out your thoughts. If you find yourself slipping into a shame spiral, get into a habit of stopping yourself as soon as you can, because energy follows thought. So the longer you give attention to certain thoughts and to certain feelings, the harder it is to snap out of it. The sooner you can identify your shame triggers, the sooner you can stop yourself from getting stuck in the shame swirl, it will be easier for you to get yourself out, and you'll actually feel stronger. You will feel more empowered. You will have high levels of self-esteem. The more you do this, you will feel more confident. This is the trick. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just practice, determination, and self-discipline. Challenge shame-based thoughts when they pop up. That's what I mean about catching yourself before you slip into an emotional flashback. When you start to get stuck into a shame spiral, question yourself, well, hang on, what are these thoughts? What's triggered this? Is this actually happening? This reminds me of the past. Is this happening now? If you're with someone and they've triggered this for you, to actually check out your assumptions. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe what they were saying wasn't what you think they're saying. It's always worth checking out your assumptions. Always. This is how we learn to take back projections. This is how we stop ourselves getting further and further into an emotional flashback. And the great thing about challenging shame-based thoughts is that over time, this is how we modify and repair our superego. Our superego is our moral code. It's what we use to determine what's right and wrong behavior for us. We learn this over time. This is coming from mum, from dad, from siblings, from society, from headmasters, from school teachers. We can change this for many people, if not most of us at some point. It can become toxic. This often happens when we have one or more family member who like to point the finger and blame, to shame you. Whether that was their intention or not to shame you often results in one having quite a toxic superego that likes to blame us. It's very harsh on ourselves. When we're very harsh on ourselves, it's what we need to do. We need to challenge this. We need to catch ourselves when we're being nasty, when we're being challenging to ourselves, and think, hang on a sec, hang on, is it really necessary for me to be so nasty to myself? Whose voice is this anyway? Is this a certain person's voice from the past? How about no? How about you bugger off and you know what, I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to change what this voice says now, and I'm going to put affirmations on the wall, or I write it on my hand or put it on my phone, so that every day I'm getting the message that actually I am pretty awesome, I am good enough, what I do is perfectly fine, I'm a good person. Whatever it is that you need to tell yourself, you need to be the one to do it. If you haven't had positive mirroring, you need to be the one to give it to yourself. And at the very least, surround yourself by people who are positive, who uplift you, people who inspire you. Be very mindful about the people that you surround yourself with. Dealing with shame when you're recovering from a divorce entails having accountability for what happened. It's taking an honest and non-biased, non-punishing look, take quite a detached look and just honestly look at how the relationship went down from the beginning, the middle, the end. Where do you think it went wrong? Where do you think it went right? What could you have done better? What was not your fault? No one's perfect. No one is perfect in a relationship. We can only try our best. We can only try to come from a higher place to live authentically, and yet many of us don't. Perhaps we're triggered into fight or flight or fawning mechanisms or submission, where we're too scared to be authentic, and so we come out of the relationship afterwards and reflect, oh, I feel ashamed for not being who I thought I was. And you have to think, okay, well, where do these behaviors come from? Is it from the past? To really look at that and then make your peace with it, and to go into any relationship afterwards, not just intimate relationships, but any sort of relationship, with your eyes wide open into your tendencies for perhaps fawning in relationships, and perhaps out of fear, not wanting to fully disclose how you feel. Right, I'm going to leave it for there today. If you've got any questions or comments, please write underneath, like and subscribe my videos. And if you are struggling in a divorce, if you've had a really messy breakup, please feel free to get in touch. My contact details are below. You can email me or you can visit my website. Until next time, have a great evening. Bye-bye.